Hey, good morning, friends. Got a couple of announcements for you today. The first one involves a plan in moving forward to begin re-entering our churches and into the future of ministry. And this plan is one that I have shared with the Board of Administration. It is a compilation of their input, of the input we received from surveys, online, CDC guidelines, White House guidelines, resources which our bishops and superintendent have been sending to us. And so I've tried to summarize it for you all in a chart, and I want to explain it. This would be the same plan for both churches, but the actual timeline may be different, and I'll get to that in a minute. But here's basically what the plan looks like. There are 4 phases, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And each phase has certain criteria within it. So for example, in phase 0, social distancing needs to be strictly practiced. And that means you're 6 feet away, stay home if you can, essential travel and business only. Vulnerable populations, those who are elderly or who have underlying health risks, vulnerable population as defined by the CDC and the White House, those people should stay home still. The size of gatherings should be somewhere still just within your immediate household or a few trusted people, according to the guidelines of the governor and what she is allowing to take place. Church staff, they'll be working remotely. They'll still be working online right now primarily. We'll not be going into homes. We're still not going out to visit folks. Many of the places that we would go visit we're not allowed in anyhow. Worship in small groups, those will take place online still. And so YouTube, Facebook, our websites, we've got a couple of Zoom Bible studies that take place. I know technology can be scary, but it's here to stay. And you can either adapt to it and embrace it and praise God for the opportunity, or in a lot of ways, you're going to feel left out. And I don't want that to happen. So just understand, online presence is part of our future moving forward. The nursery, obviously, is closed. We're not even gathering on site. Meetings, such as board meetings and committee meetings and so on, all those should still be taking place online in phase 0. Ministry taking place on the community and so forth, and facility usage. No official ministry taking place, no organized ministry or organized facility usage at this time would fall under phase 0. Once we move from phase 0 to phase 1, a few things change just a little bit. You've got still strict social distancing. You still have the vulnerable population staying home. We're now gathering outside of our immediate family with 10 or fewer people. Staff are still going to work online. Worship and small groups are still going to take place online. There's still no nursery. Meetings will still be online, and there still will be no organized ministry or facility usage taking place. Once we move over to phase 2, things change up quite a bit more. The social distancing now goes to moderate social distancing. So instead of isolating yourself and being far away from everyone, we want to be, again, moving out and about, but 6 feet away, practicing good hygiene, washing the hands. If you think that it's necessary to wear face masks and take the necessary precautions. Vulnerable populations should be cautious still. Right? They should still take extra precautions, and they may still choose to stay home and not be part of in-building gatherings, in-person gatherings. In terms of meeting in church, phase 2 is when we would really begin to have in-person meetings. We'll follow the 50-50 rule. And that means whichever is smaller, 50 people or 50% occupancy in the room. So if on a Sunday, we said our maximum occupancy in the sanctuary is 200, and so half of that is 50, or half of that is 100, we're not going to go with the 50%. We're going to go with the 50 persons, right? And so that's the 50-50 rule, and that will apply to any room in the building, any gathering 50 people or 50% occupancy, whichever is fewer, right? Staff will begin working in the building 1 to 2 days a week. Our worship and our small groups will follow that 50-50 rule, right? So we can begin having in-person gatherings, in-person worship, in-person Bible studies, but we will also maintain an online presence. Like I said, the online aspect of all of this is not going anywhere. We will be online from here on out. And then for the nursery, as we're meeting in person, the nursery will be for immediate needs only. So if you need to nurse a baby, go nurse, come out, changing a diaper, you do that, you come out. But there will be no staffing of the nursery. There will be no permanent staying in the nursery, not for a while anyhow. And then meetings, those will be either following the 50-50 rule or they'll continue to go online. And then ministry and facilities will again follow the 50-50 rule. They'll be online, and any usage of the facilities has to be approved by the Board of Administration. We have to make sure that things are being cleaned according to CDC guidelines, and that we know who's in the building at what time and when and where, and we're taking care of business like we need to. And then finally, phase 3 is going to be the new normal, it looks like, whatever that is. And so social distancing will be limited. You see there's an easing of restrictions, but some people will still be more cautious than others. Vulnerable populations are still encouraged to use discretion. We will move away from a 50-50 rule to a 75% occupancy rule. Staff can return to work as normal, whatever, again, that new normal means. And our worship and our small groups will follow the 75% rule, but we will also still have online presence. Again, the online presence of all of this, moving forward to digital church, isn't going anywhere. It will be part of our future, and we need to learn to embrace it and ask God for wisdom to navigate it. The nursery will still be immediate needs only, and then when we get to meetings and ministry and facility usage, again, all of that has shifted to the 75% online, BOA approved. So this is just a quick snapshot of the phases. In just a minute, I'm going to erase all of this and then show you how do we move from one phase to the next phase and what you can kind of expect from here on out. In order for us to move from phase to phase, what we're looking at are 2-week increments and these 3 criteria. 1, symptoms. The number of flu-like symptoms must be decreasing in our community, and the number of COVID-like symptoms must be decreasing in our community. This one is a little difficult to track, but we get an idea of it as we're watching the health department updates and interacting with folks out and about. Does it seem like fewer and fewer people are experiencing the symptoms? The second are number of cases. That's the second criteria. The number of new cases being reported has to be on a downward trajectory, or the number of positive tests percentage-wise has to be on a downward trajectory. One of those must be true. And then the third criteria has to do with hospitals. There must be no crisis in the local hospital. That means they're able to treat everyone as they're coming in. And there needs to be testing available for first responders. Primarily what we are looking at is this for our communities before we can move from phase to phase. So for example, if we started in phase 0 today and we realize, whoops, that's in the wrong spot. We realize that today in Wapello County, there are nearly 200 cases of coronavirus that have been reported. What we are watching now, this is where we're starting, what we're looking for is between today and 2 weeks from now, are the number of new cases every day driving us upward, or are we seeing a decrease? Once we have a 14-day window of a decrease, then we can go into the next phase. All right? Now, once we are in that next phase, we're back to the same 2-week window. We're looking again and watching during that 2 weeks what's happening with these criteria, and if we meet them all, we move into the next phase. And so what that would look like timeline-wise for all of us as we're kind of waiting. This is best case scenario. Being May 10th, our 2-week period would go through from May 10th to the 23rd. There's 14 days there, and that would be in phase 0. Now, if we meet all of the requirements, then that means we begin phase 1 on May 24th. And that will last until June 7th. And so, on June 7th, well, actually June 6th, but you get the idea. That would be phase 1. If everything is met, we can go to phase 2. We're talking June 7th through June 20. Phase 3 would be June 20 and on. So, our first in-building gathering would fall during this phase, and that would be on June 8th. That would be our first in-building gathering. And again, because it's phase 2, we're going to follow the 50-50 rule. 50 persons or 50% occupancy, whichever is fewer, with the mandatory 6-foot distancing between families. And so that will change some of the things that we're doing, what that looks like. Now, if at any point in one of these phases there's a sudden uptick of cases and our trajectory begins moving upwards, we go back to the previous phase. So there's no guarantee moving from here. We're going to have to get creative and be flexible and use wisdom as we move forward. In each of these phases, the church has work to do. So, for example, during phase 0, one of the things that we're working on is we're preparing our facilities for when we can gather. That means removing cloth chairs and putting out metal chairs, maybe putting in round tables for family seating, or trying to figure out which rooms are available for groups, which ones aren't. We're investing in our online capability and technology, so that way we can deliver better quality and greater quantity online presence. And then we're doing things like updating our internet service so that we have enough internet speed. We're acquiring hand sanitation stations and the necessary changes there. We have to make signage to show this way in, that way out. All of that kind of stuff is taking place as we prepare for our in-person gathering. Again, this is just a target date. It's a sample. It's a suggestion. We might be able to move in just a little bit earlier if we go back and we look at the trajectory and say, hey, May 10th is actually the 14th day of a 14 downward trajectory, then this could possibly be moved up a little bit sooner. But if we also look at today and say, wow, we're still going up, 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 up in our trajectory, this is going to be pushed back later. So it's very fluid. It's not set in stone, but it is a plan. It's something that we can begin working toward. It's a target. And I'm sure that you all have lots of questions, so I'd love to hear those. Either call me, text me, email me, send me a Facebook message, leave some comments on our website. There's a contact us form, you can do that. But we're all going to need to process this together. So that's our tentative plan moving forward.